All right, let's talk about one of the biggest decisions you can make as a parent, choosing a school for your child. It's huge, right? Today, we're going to deconstruct a promotional script for one particular school. We're going to pull back the curtain and see exactly how they pitch themselves to parents, trying to win them over. So, at the very heart of this school's pitch is a question that, a lot of parents really struggle with, especially if faith is a big part of their lives. It's this constant anxious balancing act, isn't it? How do you give your kid the tools to succeed in a super competitive modern world, but at the same time make sure they hold on to the spiritual identity that's so important to you and your family? Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the dilemma they're targeting, then the modern plus Islamic solution they offer. We'll unpack what they mean by their academic promise, and then the foundation of faith. After that, we'll see how they talk about creating a nurturing environment, and finally, how they close the deal with a call to enroll. All right, section 1, the modern parent's dilemma. Any good marketing message starts by tapping into a real problem. So what's the core issue this school is trying to solve for parents like you? And it really all comes down to this one delicate balancing act. The script is talking directly to parents who have big dreams for their kids. You want them to succeed in science and technology, but you're also absolutely determined to pass on your Islamic faith, your heritage. It taps right into that deep-seated fear that you might have to give up one to get the other. Okay, on to part 2, a modern and Islamic solution. So when you bring up a problem that's this personal, you need an answer that's really simple and clear. Let's see what they come up with. And there it is. Simple, right? The school's entire philosophy boiled down into just 3 words. But this is so much more than a tagline. It's a direct promise. It's saying to parents, hey, you don't have to choose. You can have both. And that little plus sign is absolutely key. It's signaling that this is about adding things together, not compromising on either one. Section 3, unpacking the academic promise. So the big promise is out there, but what does it really mean in practice? Let's dig into the modern part of the equation first. So, the script really builds its promise on these 2 big pillars. You've got the modern pillar, which is all about getting your kid ready for the future. And then you have the Islamic pillar, which is about making sure they have that solid grounding in their faith and values. We're going to start by looking at that modern promise. Now, pay attention to the specific words they use here. They don't just say good education. No, they use keywords that really catch a parent's ear. STEM learning, a contemporary curriculum, and it's all designed to prepare kids for bright futures. See, this isn't just about learning stuff for a test. It's about positioning your child for success in a really competitive world. All right, on to part 4, the foundation of faith. So they've laid out the academic side of things, but for the parents they're talking to, this next part is just as crucial. Let's look at the faith pillar. So this is the other half of that core promise. This is where the script basically says, don't worry, a modern education doesn't mean your child loses their way. By pointing to things like Quranic studies and a focus on values, they're promising that kids will get a deep cultural and moral grounding, a real sense of who they are. Part 5, crafting a nurturing environment. Now, this is maybe the most important part. The script doesn't just present modern and Islamic as 2 separate classes. The real trick is how they blend them into one single experience. So how do they pull that off? They focus on the environment. And the magic word they use is holistic. This is the glue that holds the whole pitch together. They're selling this idea that a child's mind, their spirit, their character, it all gets developed together in harmony. It's a really powerful message, promising a complete, well-rounded kid, not just a smart one. And to make that big idea feel real and emotional, they use some very specific words. Let's start with this one, nurture. This word isn't about homework or test scores, is it? It's about care. It's about safety. It speaks directly to that instinct every parent has to protect their child. But then they pair it with this word, empower. And that's the perfect other half of the coin, right? Nurture promises to keep them safe, while empower promises to make them strong and capable. The message is crystal clear. We will look after your child, and we will get them ready to take on the world. The script is also super specific about who it's for. By saying nursery to 7th class, they're zeroing in on those absolutely crucial foundational years. This is the time when parents feel like every decision they make is going to have this huge impact on who their child becomes later in life. And that brings us to the final section, the call to enroll. So they've built this really compelling case, hitting both the heart and the head. Now they've got to close the deal. Let's see how they turn all that persuasion into actual action. And it's a pretty classic but really effective three-step process. First, they create a sense of urgency. Enroll today. Second, they make it as easy as possible to take the next step by giving you the contact info. And third, they leave you with this big, inspiring idea of what your child could become. And notice this little detail. They don't just give you one phone number. They give you two. It seems small, but it's all about removing friction. It sends a message that they're accessible, that they're eager to talk. It just makes that next step of picking up the phone feel completely effortless. And this is the final thought they leave parents with. This one line just perfectly wraps up the entire pitch, doesn't it? You've got future, which is that modern academic promise. You've got faith for that crucial spiritual grounding. And then excellence just ties it all together with this powerful, aspirational feeling. So, when you step back and look at all this, it makes you wonder, right? In a world where we have so many choices, maybe the most powerful sales pitch of all is the language of balance. This script is for one school, but you see this strategy everywhere. It's the promise that you don't have to make those tough compromises, that you can have the best of both worlds. And in a world that feels more and more complicated, maybe that promise of balance is the most powerful story anyone can tell.